Good evening, everybody. Today we are here to record the presentation for enhancing sustainability and CSR at Qantas Airways through authentic leadership and the values change management cycle. So I will take a moment to introduce myself and my other group members. So my name is Sayed Ali, and my student ID is 64364. Along with me, there are three more group members, Prevaleen, Nadia, and Adnan Khalid. So let us move to the second slide. So the purpose of this presentation is to analyze Qantas Airways' commitment to environmental sustainability and CSR using authentic leadership and values change management cycle. So what is the scope of our presentation? So our scope is basically limited to the two key issues, that is the high carbon emissions and ethical gaps in change management. And what is the objective of today's presentation? So it is to provide actionable recommendations for short and long-term improvements in sustainability and CSR. And it is very significant in today's corporate world because it is totally aligned with the organizational behavior principles to enhance ethical leadership and stakeholders' trust. So we have basically included two theories. The first one is authentic leadership, and it is defined as a leadership style emphasizing self-awareness, relational transparency, balanced processing, and moral perspective. And what are the advantages of this theory? It fosters trust, optimism, and engagement with different employees, and it acts as a job resource under JDR model, and which reduce overall demands. And what are the drawbacks of this theory? It is basically it gives rise to the cultural biases in diverse settings, and it creates challenges in measuring authenticity objectively. And how it is relevant to the OB, because it aligns personal values with organizational goals, promoting ethical and sustainable change. So I will move on to my second group member, Prevalin. So she will now explain the next slide.
So I am explaining about the values change management cycle or VCMC. The VCMC is an ethical framework for managing change. It goes through stages like identifying needs, applying ethical leadership, involving stakeholders, and finally evaluating outcomes. This makes sure that change is values driven rather than just profit driven. So there are some key advantages like first, it helps integrate ethics into change, which reduces from employees. So it also encourages innovation and strengthens commitment within the organization. However, there are also limitations. The model relies heavily on a strong ethical culture, which can be difficult in highly profit driven firms. So, there's also a risk of the process being implemented only superficially without genuine values being adopted. So, in terms of organizational behavior, this theory is highly relevant because it connects with leadership with employee commitment, and it also ensures that changes are aligned with organizational values, which leads to more sustainable and meaningful transformation. Now I'll move to next slide, which is a case study of Qantas Airways overview. In this slide, Qantas is an Australia's biggest airline, which is started in 1920 and carries around 50 million passengers every year and has about 25,000 employees. In terms of sustainability, Qantas run the Fly Carbon Neutral program, which aims for net zero emissions by 2050 using sustainable fuel and carbon offsets. So they also do community work like supporting indigenous employment and helping with disaster relief. But Qantas also faces big issues like their carbon emissions are very high, over 10 million tons of CO2 in 2023. On top of that, they have had ethical problems in change management like outsourcing scandal in 2023. So overall Qantas is a major airline making sustainability efforts, but it still struggle with high emissions and ethical challenges. Now I am moving to next slide, in which there is discussion about high carbon emissions. Like if we talk about their problems, so Qantas emitted 10.5 million tons of CO2 in 2023 despite its target of a 25% reduction by 2030. So there are root causes, which is slow adoption of sustainable aviation fuel, only 10% blend planned with 2030, heavy dependency on long haul flights. So, authentic leadership AL analysis is Qantas leadership shows self awareness, but it lacks relational transparency in stakeholder consultations. So, this erodes trust and reduces the employee engagement in initiatives. So another thing is value centered management of change, VCMC analysis. So there is a change processes which focus on efficiency over ethical values, which leads to employer resistance, and this approach conflicts with utilitarian principles. Now I am passing the next slide to Adnan. He will continue the further explanation.
Now I will talk about the issue two, ethical gaps in change management. Some of the examples like Qantas outsourced 1,700 staff in 2023, public trust dropped, and some of the causes quick restructuring after COVID, and no ethical checkpoints, and leaders focused on cost and not people. And some of the impacts like leadership values question, weaker CCSR, less innovation, and poor stakeholder engagement. And now I will move into the next slide. Recommendation one, authentic leadership training, like training managers in authentic leadership in short term workshops to build moral values, improve transparency, and rebuild trust. Long term, add authentic leadership into performance goals, encouraging optimism and staff engagement. And some of the expected results, more employee employment in involvement in CSR and sustainable fuel adoption. And now I will move into the third slide, recommendation two, and embed VCMC in change management. Use the value centered management cycle in CSR and sustainability. In short term, add ethical checkpoints in plans and address mistrust from outsourcing. Long term, review culture every 2 years, and expands CSR with programs like indigenous initiatives. And some of the expected result like stronger employee commitment and ethical workplace culture. And next slide will talk about Adnan.
Thank you. My started slide is recommendation three, multi stakeholders collaboration strategy. Enhance partnership for emissions reduction and CSR. Short term, 1 year collaboration with supplies and NGOs for SAF trials using allies, relational transparency. Long term by 2040, develop joint ventures for net zero goals, integrating VCMCs and ethical principles. Phillips and Kellin, 2022. Expected outcome: improve trust and innovation sustainability as seen in global airlines. And now I move to the conclusion, which are the key insights. Qantas excel in sustainability targets and CSR, but struggles with the high emission and ethical gaps. All fosters trust and optimum VCMC, ensures values driven changes. Recommendations: AL training, VCMC integration, and stakeholders collaboration to enhance engagement and innovation. Limitations: uh, reliance on public reports, external aviation uh, concentrates. Uh, Future research, imperial testing of AL and VCMC in Qantas context. There are some references as well, like Journal of Nursing and Management, and the last one is Journal of Management. Thank you.
Done?